Are you a new piano teacher trying to decide what piano method book series to use for your students? Or perhaps you've been teaching for a while and you're just wondering, I wonder what other piano method books are out there. Well, hey there, if we haven't met, I am Phoenix and I'm the Tattooed Piano Teacher. And I am here today to share my experience with 3 of my go-to piano method book series that I pull off the shelf most often for my students. My previous video was about how to choose a piano method book series, and I went sort of in depth with 10 categories of criteria that I use to compare piano methods. In that video, I mentioned that it really is helpful to hear from someone who's experienced the piano method book series on multiple levels with their students, ideally for years, to really get an idea of things like how the method book series is paced over the years through the levels, how much review is there and stuff like that. How are the songs? Do the students like the songs? Sometimes you can't tell by just glancing at it, and you really need to talk to someone who has been in the trenches with this tool and how it has worked for them. So I'm coming out of the trenches to let you know how these 3 specific piano method book series have worked for me. My first top pick is probably no surprise if you've been around the piano world for any amount of time, and that is the Faber Piano Adventures piano method book series. I'm going over this one first because A, it is the most popular piano book series, and it's also my go-to for my students as well. So there's a reason that it's number 1. This method book series, it's been around for a while, and they are continually updating it. It's well balanced, so it prepares kids for basically whatever kind of music they want to play, whether that be classical, jazz, modern styles, or anything in between. And the pacing of this book is just so good. It moves through the concepts in what seems to be just the right pace for the average student that I teach. There's enough new stuff for them to chew on and keep them motivated and inspired to move on to the next page. But there's enough review of old concepts that they are not feeling left behind as they move forward in the series. So love it or hate it, this is my go-to for most of my students from the time they start out to the time they graduate the series. Now, 2 disclaimers here. Disclaimer number 1, I am not a cookie cutter teacher, so I do not just hand the same books to every student and teach every student in the same way. And I have some videos about teaching different students in different ways. But when something works, you stick with it, right? So this is my go-to, and I really deviate from this only when it really seems like the best thing for the student. So just wanted to mention that's what I mean by go-to. I don't mean that everybody has this book, whether they like it or not. It just works the best for most students, in my experience. Disclaimer number 2, everything on this video is entirely my opinion and 100% from my personal experience in my studio. Other teachers may have a completely different experience with the method book series that I am mentioning here today, and I completely respect that. Just want to mention that my opinions are simply that, just my opinions. My second top pick that I pull off the shelf for the right student would be the Alfred's Premier Piano Course. So the Alfred Premier Piano Course is also very good, and in many ways similar to the Faber Piano Adventures series. If you've been around for a while, you probably remember the old Alfred Basic with like the brown, green, gold covers. And so this was Alfred Publishing's answer to the rise of the Piano Adventures series and their basic piano series getting just maybe a little bit stale over the years, and so they freshened things up. Now I will say the composers for this series, Dennis Alexander and friends, phenomenal lineup. So the songs in these books are so well written. They are heavy on the classical and heavy on the jazz. So students are going to be technically sound when they get through these books. I do not give these books to everybody because for many of my students and their busy lives and the amount that they're able to practice, this would be too fast of a pace for them. And what I mean by that is the songs and the concepts get too difficult too quickly for most of my students. So I pull out this series when I have a student that is moving really quickly through what I'm giving them, and they like a challenge, they have a lot of time to practice, they have maybe some musical background in the past, and I know that they can take on this series. This series I feel like is going to take students farther in the realm of like technical skills, but they have to be up for it or it's definitely going to leave them behind. So again, that is just my personal experience and opinion about the Alfred's premier piano course. And then we have the Wunderkeys series. Okay, have you heard about the Wunderkeys series? It's totally unique and like the new kid on the block as far as piano method series go. It's only available on Amazon.com. You cannot get it from a mainstream publisher. You cannot get it anywhere else. You will not see it in a music store, to my knowledge, I don't think. It is only on Amazon. Now, the unique thing about Wunderkeys is that the books are filled with very colorful pictures, comics, lovable characters, and games. There are games in every book. So just opening up a Wunderkeys book, you'll notice a totally different aesthetic. Another thing that's unique about this is their approach to how notes are introduced to the student. And in general, if we're just making general comparisons, the Wunderkeys books are a slower pace than the other two methods that I mentioned or the other ones that I've used. And so this is just right for a student who is possibly a younger beginner or someone who doesn't have as much time to practice or no previous musical experience and just needs like a little more review on everything before they're moving on to the next concept, because the positions stay in one place and they stick with the notes for a long time. There's lots of review. So although I would not give the Wunderkeys series to like every single one of my students, for the right student, I have really been loving this series in the last few years. I have to say, it has been a pleasant surprise. So comment below if you've heard of the Wunderkeys book series. Of these three, have you heard of any? Have you tried any? Let me know in the comments. Now, I am making a specific video for each of these series so that I can go more in depth on the different levels, how it's worked in my experience, what I like about it, maybe some things I don't like about it, and even go into like demonstrating some of the songs for them. So without spending the money to buy every single level, you can kind of get an overview of it from my perspective. So first we're gonna go further in depth on the Faber Piano Adventures series. So join me on the next video where I'll share my specific experience with all the levels of this book, teaching it for years. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next video.